Welcome back students to my video on bond parameters of chapter 4 chemical bonding. There are 6 bond parameters that you should know before you learn about the different theories on chemical bonding. In this video, I'll be explaining 4 out of 6 bond parameters. The 6 bond parameters are bond length, bond angle, bond enthalpy, bond order, resonance structures, and polarity of bonds. These are the 6 parameters that you should be well aware of before you start learning about VSEPR theory, VB theory, that is valence band theory, and molecular orbital theory. Okay, I'll be explaining about bond length, bond angle, bond enthalpy, and bond order in this video. So let us deal with these bond parameters one by one. The first bond parameter is bond length. Now look at this animation. Here, energy of the combining atoms or the system in general is taken along the y-axis and the internuclear distance between the combining atoms is taken along the x-axis. Now from the representation you can see how energy of the system varies with internuclear distance between the combining atoms. When two atoms approach each other, forces of attraction operate between them and as a result the energy of the system keeps on decreasing. Okay, it keeps on decreasing until a particular distance is reached when the energy of the system is the minimum. Okay, so if you try to bring the two atoms still closer to each other beyond this distance, okay, if you try to decrease the distance between the two combining atoms further, then forces of repulsion would begin to operate between them and this leads to an increase in the energy of the system. Thus, you can see that the forces of attraction between the two atoms is equal to the forces of repulsion between them at a certain equilibrium distance, and the system is found to possess the minimum energy possible at this distance. Okay, in other words, the system remains stable at equilibrium distance. Okay, this is the equilibrium distance. Okay, so this equilibrium distance between the nuclei of two bonded atoms in a molecule is defined as its bond length. Okay, remember in chemistry we are dealing with atoms and molecules that are extremely small in size. Okay, so it is not possible for us to study their bond lengths or to determine their bond lengths directly. So these days it is possible for us to measure the bond lengths of atoms and molecules by spectroscopic, X-ray diffraction and electron diffraction techniques. Okay, note that each atom of the bonded pair contributes to the bond length. And bond length is usually expressed in angstrom units where 1 angstrom is equal to 10 power minus 10 meter or in picometers where 1 picometer is equal to 10 power minus 12 meters. Students, how do we calculate the bond length of an ionic compound? An ionic compound consists of a positively charged cation and a negatively charged anion. Okay, the bond length of an ionic compound R is just the sum of the radii of the cation and anion constituting the compound, and this is mathematically given by capital R equal to R plus R minus, where R plus is the ionic radius of cation and R minus is the ionic radius of anion. Now let's calculate the bond length of a covalent molecule. Let's say there are two atoms, atom A and atom B. As you see, they are of different sizes and so atom A and atom B should be of different elements. When they join together, imagine that they are forming a covalent bond. And when they do so, distance between the nuclei of atom A and B should be the bond length. Now the bond length R of a covalent molecule AB is mathematically expressed as the sum of the radius of atom A and the radius of atom B. That is capital R equal to RA plus RB. Now since AB is a covalent molecule, RA is the covalent radius of atom A and RB is the covalent radius of atom B. Now how do we calculate the not the bond length, but the covalent radius of a homonuclear diatomic molecule like chlorine. The covalent radius of chlorine molecule is taken just as the half of the bond length of the chlorine molecule. Okay, the covalent radius of chlorine atom belonging to chlorine molecule is given by this. Okay, small r to the subscript of Cl. Okay, this represents the covalent radius of chlorine atom belonging to chlorine molecule, and the bond length of chlorine molecule is given by capital R Cl. Okay, so the covalent radius of chlorine atom belonging to chlorine molecule is taken as half of the bond length of chlorine molecule. So this is how you calculate the covalent radius of a diatomic molecule like chlorine. Atomic size can be expressed in terms of different types of radii like covalent radius, van der Waals radius, and metallic radius. You might have learned about metallic radius when you studied chapter 3. So I'm not going to explain about that here. Rather, I will be explaining about covalent radius and van der Waals radius. We just saw how to calculate the covalent radius of a chlorine atom belonging to chlorine molecule. Right, so it is measured approximately as the radius of an atom's core, which is in contact with the core of an adjacent atom in a bonded situation. Okay, here in the calculation of covalent radius, we just consider the radius of an atom's core. Okay, this includes the nucleus and all the inner shells. We just exclude considering the valence shell of the atom belonging to a covalent molecule while calculating its covalent radius. Clear? But in the case of van der Waals radius, we take the overall size of the atom into consideration, which includes its valence shell. Okay, van der Waals radius is calculated among the atoms belonging to neighboring molecules which are in non-bonded situation. Here it is in bonded situation. Covalent radius is calculated in an atom belonging to a covalent molecule in a bonded situation. Here we are dealing with atoms belonging to neighboring molecules which are in non-bonded situation. Now, what is the definition of covalent radius? It is defined as 1/2 of the distance between the centers of the nuclei of two covalently bonded atoms of the same element in a molecule. Now, what is the definition for van der Waals radius? It is defined as 1/2 of the distance between the centers of the nuclei of two identical, non-bonded, isolated atoms. Or one more definition is, it is defined as 1/2 of the distance between the centers of the nuclei of two adjacent identical atoms belonging to two neighboring molecules of an element in the solid state. Okay, children, learn the definitions of covalent radius and van der Waals radius. You may be asked to define the same during exam. Okay, so do learn the definitions of covalent radius and van der Waals radius. Now, shall we calculate the covalent and van der Waals radii in a chlorine molecule? Look at the picture displayed. It shows two covalent chlorine molecules. And this is another way of representing these two chlorine molecules. All right. Now, in this picture, you can see RVDW. This indicates van der Waals radii and RC indicates the covalent radii. Now, there's a covalent bond between the two chlorine atoms here, and there's a covalent bond between these two chlorine atoms. And that's why the two chlorine atoms are seen pressing against each other. Now, how do we calculate the covalent radius of a chlorine atom belonging to a chlorine molecule? It is half of the bond length of the chlorine molecule. Now, what is bond length of the chlorine molecule? It is the distance, internuclear distance between the bonded atoms of the chlorine molecule. Okay, this is the bond length of chlorine molecule. Now, bond length of a chlorine molecule is 198 picometers. If you divide this by 2, you get 99 picometers, which gives the value of the covalent radius Rc of a chlorine atom in the chlorine molecule. As you can see, 198 picometers is the bond length of the chlorine molecule and 99 picometers is the covalent radius of a chlorine atom in the chlorine molecule. Now students, note that there are two chlorine molecules which are just lying together, right? They are not bonded to each other, but they lie just adjacent to each other. Now, just imagine the two chlorine molecules to be in the solid state. Assume that the two chlorine molecules are just touching each other. Since there is no bond between them, they are not pressing each other as the chlorine atoms do in the chlorine molecules. Clear? The chlorine molecules are barely touching each other. So there might be a slight distance between them, but that is not of much value. All right. They are not occupying the space of each other. That is what you must see here. Okay, this chlorine molecule is not occupying the space of this chlorine molecule. Okay, such an attraction between the adjacent chlorine molecules is known as van der Waals attraction. Now, how do we calculate the van der Waals radius? Remember, it is measured as half of the distance between the centers of the nuclei of two adjacent chlorine atoms belonging to two neighboring chlorine molecules. Clear? Now, the distance between the centers of the nuclei of two adjacent chlorine atoms belonging to two neighboring chlorine molecules is 360 picometers. Right? Therefore, if you divide this by 2, you get 180 picometers, which gives the value of the van der Waals radius RVDW. Okay, RVDW of chlorine atom. So this is how you calculate the different types of radii. So this is about the first parameter, which is bond length. There are two factors affecting bond length. First one is the size of atoms in a molecule. The bond length of a bond between two small atoms would be smaller than the bond length of a bond between two larger atoms. So bond length increases with increase in the size of the atoms. For example, here we have arranged the hydrides of halogens in the order of decreasing bond lengths. The bond length of hydrogen iodide is the largest and the bond length of hydrogen fluoride is the shortest. This is because iodine, in hydrogen iodide is larger in size than fluorine in hydrogen fluoride. Also, bond length is related to the strength of a bond. So, shorter the bond length, stronger would be the bond. If we want to break such a bond, then we need to supply more amount of energy. Since hydrogen fluoride has the shortest bond length, the bond between hydrogen and fluorine is the strongest. So we need to supply more amount of energy if we want to break the bond between hydrogen and fluorine in HF. When compared to the energy that would be required to break the bond between HCl or HBr or HI. Now the second factor affecting bond length is bond multiplicity. Here, bond multiplicity denotes the number of bonds between two atoms. So bond length decreases with increase in bond multiplicity. Now, look at the examples. We have C triple bond C, C double bond C, and C single bond C, right? Which among these has the greatest number of bonds? C triple bond C. So C triple bond C has greatest bond multiplicity when compared to C double bond C and C single bond C. Therefore, C triple bond C has the shortest bond length, as we know bond length decreases with increase in the bond multiplicity. So a triple bond is shorter in length than a double bond or a single bond. Now remember I told you that shorter the bond length, stronger would be the bond. Since triple bond has the shortest bond length, it is the strongest bond and we need to supply more amount of energy if we need to break these three bonds between C and C. So this would be the strongest bond. Triple bond is the strongest bond than double bond or a single bond. And the triple bond is the has the shortest bond length among double bond or a single bond. So this is all about the factors affecting bond length. The second parameter that I will explain now is bond angle. As the name itself suggests, bond angle is simply the angle between bonds. Okay, we know that atomic orbitals of atoms overlap to form bonds between them. Okay, and we also know that shared pairs of electrons or bonding pairs of electrons between two bonded atoms constitute bonds. So bond angle is nothing but the angle between the orbitals containing bonding pairs of electrons around the central atom in a molecule or complex ion. So this is the definition of bond angle. And bond angle can be measured experimentally by spectroscopic methods. Okay, through spectroscopy, it is possible to identify the position of atoms of a molecule. Once we identify the relative position of the atoms, we can connect them by drawing lines, and we can determine the angle between these lines. Bond angle is usually expressed in degrees. Okay, now look at water molecule. It has a bend shape, right? The bond angle of water molecule is 104.5 degrees. Okay, it is the bond angle that helps in determining the shape of a molecule. Okay, bond angle gives some idea about the distribution of orbitals around the central atom in a molecule or complex ion. Don't worry, you will study why certain molecules have certain angles and certain structures. Okay, you will study that later in this chapter. So this is all about bond angle. We move on now to the third bond parameter, which is bond enthalpy. Energy is released during the formation of a bond between two atoms. Okay, when two atoms combine, they form bond, and this is associated with the release of energy. Okay, the formation of a bond is associated with release of energy. So the same amount of energy must be supplied if you want to break this bond. Okay, you need to supply the amount of energy that was released during the formation of that bond in order to break it. Only then the bond will break. Now, what is the definition of bond enthalpy? It is defined as the amount of energy required to break 1 mole of bonds of a particular type between two atoms in gaseous state so as to separate them into individual gaseous atoms. Okay, bond enthalpy is otherwise called bond dissociation energy or bond dissociation enthalpy. Bond enthalpy is expressed in units of kilojoules per mole. Students, do keep in mind that bond enthalpy is related to the strength of a bond. So greater the bond dissociation enthalpy, stronger would be the bond in the molecule. That is, if greater amount of energy is required to break a bond, then it means that particular bond would be a stronger bond. In diatomic molecules like hydrogen, chlorine, hydrogen chloride and so on, only one type of bond is present. See, there is only a single bond between the two hydrogen atoms of a hydrogen molecule. And if you look at hydrogen chloride molecule, here again there is a single bond between hydrogen and chlorine atoms of hydrogen chloride molecule. So in these diatomic molecules, only one type of bond is present. Which type of bond is present? Only a single bond is present in diatomic molecules. So their bond enthalpies are the same as their bond dissociation enthalpies. Now, for example, 435.8 kilojoules of energy is required to break the single bond between the two hydrogen atoms in 1 mole of hydrogen molecules in order to separate them into isolated gaseous hydrogen atoms. Now look at this term. This term corresponds to the bond dissociation enthalpy of hydrogen molecule. Okay. Now, why do we have this alphabet A as subscript below the symbol delta in all these cases? Because here we are supplying some amount of energy and we are breaking a molecule, we are converting a molecule into its constituent gaseous atoms. Okay, since we are converting molecules into atoms by supplying some amount of energy, this term is now called enthalpy of atomization. Okay, so bond dissociation enthalpy here is also known as enthalpy of atomization in all these cases. Now, for a heterodiatomic molecule like hydrogen chloride, 431 kilojoules of energy is required to break the single bond between hydrogen and chlorine atoms in 1 mole of hydrogen chloride molecules. Now look at the bond dissociation enthalpy values of oxygen and nitrogen molecules which contain double and triple bonds. The amount of energy required to break the double bond between the two oxygen atoms in 1 mole of oxygen molecule is 498 kilojoules. Okay, whereas the amount of energy required to break the triple bond between the two nitrogen atoms of a nitrogen molecule in 1 mole of nitrogen molecule is 946 kilojoules per mole. Right. This means that bond dissociation enthalpy increases with increase in the bond multiplicity. That is, the bond dissociation energy increases with increase in the number of bonds. Clear? We know that a triple bond is stronger than a double bond, which in turn is stronger than a single bond. This is why more amount of energy is required to break a triple bond than a double bond or a single bond. Okay, hence the value of bond dissociation enthalpy is greatest in the case of triple bond than in double bond or a single bond. So, a triple bond has the highest value for bond dissociation enthalpy and a single bond has the lowest value for bond dissociation enthalpy. Measurement of bond enthalpy in polyatomic molecules. In polyatomic molecules, the bond dissociation energy is usually not the same for successive bonds, although they may be of the same type. Let's understand this with the example of water molecule. In water molecule, there are two OH bonds and you may naturally expect bonds to be identical in nature, but they are not so. Now look at the bond dissociation enthalpy of the two OH bonds of water. They are different from one another. So the first OH bond of water molecule is not the same as the second OH bond of water molecule. Okay, the value of the bond dissociation enthalpy corresponding to the breakage of first OH bond of water molecule is 502 kilojoules per mole. You can see that one of the bonds of water molecule breaks and forms hydrogen and OH in the gaseous state. Now the second process involves the breakage of the second OH bond of water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen in the gaseous state. Okay, and the corresponding bond dissociation enthalpy is equal to 427 kilojoules per mole. You can see that the bond dissociation enthalpy of the first OH bond is greater than the bond dissociation enthalpy of the second OH bond. This is because more amount of energy is required to break one of the two OH bonds of water molecule, which is a stable molecule. So we need to supply more amount of energy if you want to break one of the OH bonds of the already stable water molecule. Okay, that is why you have greater value of bond dissociation enthalpy corresponding to the breakage of first OH bond. Okay, now after the breakage of the first OH bond, what are we left with? We are left with only the second OH bond, OH species. This is relatively less stable when compared to the stability of the parent water molecule. Clear? So only lesser amount of energy is required to break the second OH bond, which is relatively less stable. Okay. Also, after the breakage of the first OH bond, or the second OH bond of water molecule undergoes some change due to the changed chemical, in the sense electronic environment. See, after the breakage of the first OH bond, I told you we are left with only OH bond. So it undergoes some change in its electronic environment. It undergoes some change in its chemical environment. And this is the reason for the difference in the bond dissociation enthalpy of the second OH bond of water molecule. Now, in polyatomic molecules consisting of more than one bond of the same kind, the term mean or average bond enthalpy is used. Now, how will you calculate the average bond enthalpy of water molecule? See, in water molecule, here we have more than one bond of the same kind. So, we can use the term mean or average bond enthalpy. So, how will you calculate the average bond enthalpy of water molecule? You will add the values of the first bond dissociation enthalpy and second bond dissociation enthalpy in the numerator, and you will divide it with 2. What is 2 here? 2 is the number of bonds that you are breaking. In water molecule, there are only 2 bonds. So, we are breaking only these 2 bonds. You will write this number in the denominator. On solving this, you get 464.5 kilojoules per mole. So this is the average bond enthalpy of the polyatomic molecule water. Similarly, in methane, there are 4 CH bonds and we may expect them to be identical, but they are not so. I told you, when the first CH bond is broken, what will happen to the chemical environment of the others? The chemical environment of the remaining 3 CH bonds will differ now. When the second CH bond is broken, the chemical environment of the next remaining 2 CH bonds will differ. Okay, now when the third CH bond is broken, the fourth CH bond will undergo a change in its chemical environment. So we will have 4 different CH bond dissociation energies. Clear? So the average of these 4 values gives the average bond enthalpy of methane molecule. How will you calculate it? In the numerator, you will add the 4 dissociation enthalpies corresponding to the 4 CH bonds in methane. You will divide it with what? Will you divide it with 2? No. You are breaking 4 bonds. So you will divide the numerator by 4 in the case of methane. Okay, and on solving that, you will get a value, and that value will correspond to the average bond enthalpy of methane. So this is how we measure the bond enthalpy in the case of polyatomic molecules. Now we move on to the next bond parameter, which is bond order. Bond order is nothing but the number of bonds. Okay, it is the number of bonds between 2 atoms in a molecule. For example, since there's only one bond between the 2 hydrogen atoms of a hydrogen molecule, the bond order of hydrogen molecule is 1. Now, as there are 2 bonds between the 2 oxygen atoms of oxygen molecule, the bond order of oxygen molecule is 2. There are 3 bonds between the 2 nitrogen atoms of nitrogen molecule, and as a result, the bond order of nitrogen molecule is 3. Now, as there are 3 bonds between the carbon and oxygen atoms of carbon monoxide molecule, the bond order of carbon monoxide is 3. Okay, and again, you must know the Lewis structures of each molecule if you want to write the correct bond order of each molecule. Clear? Only then you can write the proper number of bonds between atoms of a molecule. Now note that isoelectronic molecules and ions have identical bond orders. For example, if you look at fluorine and O2 this is peroxide ion. Okay, now if you look at fluorine and peroxide ion, they are isoelectronic with each other. Now, how do you know that? You must calculate the total number of valence electrons in fluorine and the total number of valence electrons in peroxide ion. When you do that, you will find that there are 18 valence electrons each in fluorine molecule and peroxide ion. And we know the Lewis structure of fluorine molecule, right? From the Lewis structure of fluorine molecule, we know that the number of bonds between the 2 fluorine atoms of fluorine molecule is 1. So the bond order of fluorine molecule is 1. Okay, now since O2 ion is isoelectronic with fluorine molecule, it also has the bond order 1. Now look at the next set of species, nitrogen molecule, carbon monoxide and NO+. They are also isoelectronic with each other. This you will know if you find out the total number of valence electrons in nitrogen molecule, total number of valence electrons in carbon monoxide molecule, and the total number of valence electrons in NO+ ion. Okay, when you do that, you will find that there are 14 electrons in nitrogen molecule, there are 14 electrons in the valence shell of carbon monoxide molecule, and there are 14 electrons in the valence shell of NO+ ion. Clear? And we know the Lewis structures of nitrogen and carbon monoxide molecule. From the Lewis structures of nitrogen and carbon monoxide molecule, we know that there are 3 bonds between the two nitrogen atoms of nitrogen molecule and the two that is carbon atom and oxygen atom of carbon monoxide molecule. Now look here, there are three bonds between the two nitrogen atoms of nitrogen molecule, and there are three bonds between the carbon and oxygen atom of carbon monoxide molecule. So their bond order is 3. Since NO plus is isoelectronic with nitrogen and carbon monoxide molecule, it also should have the same bond order. Okay, so the bond order of NO plus ion is also 3. Clear? So this is how you must calculate the bond orders of isoelectronic molecules and ions. And this is something which I have learned previously in this video. As the bond order increases, bond enthalpy increases, and hence bond length decreases. We know as the number of bonds between atoms increase, the amount of energy required to break those bonds increase, and as a result, the bond length of the bond decreases. Clear? So with this, I wind up my video on the first 4 bond parameters. I'll be explaining about the next 2 bond parameters, that is resonance structures and polarity of bonds, in my next video. So thank you for watching, and bye-bye for now.